Sonic Dream Team is one of the biggest gaming surprises of the year. One, because it was only announced a month ago, and two, because it's legitimately good, bringing 3D Sonic into new, yet familiar territory with 6 playable characters in a unique dream setting. And even though not every element comes together smoothly, it still left a greater impression on me than Sonic's last few 3D outings. The game begins with Dr. Eggman attempting to activate a dream-controlling device called the Reverie, causing Sonic and his friends to get sucked into his dreams, where they meet the guardian of the Reverie named REM. Haha, get it? And with her help, Sonic and his friends must travel through Eggman's twisted dreamscapes to prevent his dreams of world domination from coming true in the real world. Understandably, the story is fairly simple, as it's just meant to give these characters a reason to be running around in these bizarre dream worlds. But the dream concept is not fully utilized here, as these levels look mostly like typical Sonic levels, just with dreamy backdrops you'll hardly even notice. What's interesting is that even though the cutscenes are told through still images and voiceover, the intros to some levels look quite impressive with great animations. When Sonic Dream Team was announced, comparisons to the Sonic Adventure series immediately sprung to mind. What with the multiple playable characters and levels that appear open-ended and not on a straight path like with the Boost formula games? So, is this a Sonic Adventure game? Sort of. I think adventure fans will find a lot of enjoyment here, simply from the roster of playable characters that can unlock different branching pathways through their unique abilities. Sonic and Amy can ring dash, Tails and Cream can fly, and Knuckles and Rouge can glide and climb red walls. Other than that, they all move at the exact same speed, and they have the homing attack ability. At first you start with Sonic and Amy, but then quickly unlock the latter 4. Then you can go back to previous levels and unlock areas that used to be inaccessible, since you can swap between all characters at any time. That way you can get all the red star rings and blue rings hidden in each level, which I enjoy as a fan of collectathon platformers. Ironically, Sonic Dream Team's level structure is similar to that of classic 3D Mario games, like 64 and Sunshine, just without a hub world. Even though there are only 12 levels, they'll have to be replayed a few times as they offer different missions, sometimes limited to specific characters. The first mission is always to get to the end, and that's where the collectible red and blue rings can be found too. But afterwards, there are a few more missions like racing through checkpoints, getting to the end of the stage within a time limit, and collecting Master Emerald pieces. I mean Dream Orb shards, which are basically the power stars from Mario and are required to unlock later levels. Though there isn't much variety in these mission types, they often felt fresh thanks to how they changed up the levels at times, by adding new obstacles or creating entirely new platforms to climb and jump on. What's more is that there are daily Tails challenges that give 5 unique trials that are some of the hardest ones in the game. Although there are no game overs, as death merely sets you back a few paces. The lack of variety in missions is easy to overlook, as Sonic Dream Team is just darn fun to play. There's a certain flow to the game that's satisfying while pulling off successful homing attack chains, grind rail boosts, ring dashes, etc. It's the same feeling I get when playing a Boost formula Sonic game, but whereas those stages were largely constrained to moving forward constantly, Dream Team isn't afraid to let players stop and take a look around, finding those collectible rings hidden in not so obvious places, and even incorporating key fetch quests to greater explore the level. It reminded me of, you guessed it, Sonic Adventure, as the levels in those games had some explorable sections to them. This is what I've been missing from 3D Sonic for a long time, as I actually like the slower pace of the adventure games, giving me breaks between the high-speed sections so I could explore and find secrets. Even then, these explorable segments are not the main focus of Dream Team, rather something to do when revisiting levels to find what you missed. Thankfully, it's still fun to go fast in true Sonic fashion once you nail that flow of a level as previously mentioned. I haven't noticed any realistic momentum physics, as the characters seem to move at a constant speed whether they're going up or down grind rails, but I never felt like that hindered the fun factor of this game. I noticed that momentum is mainly present when running up walls or jumping off these half pipes, which I never found to be implemented in creative ways. That said, Sonic Dream Team is still a mobile game, therefore it is restrained in some aspects that console games aren't. For as big as some of these levels are, they're only filled with a few one-hit kill enemies, and there are only 2 types of collectibles, the red star and blue rings mentioned before. I'm sure these elements were limited as the developers possibly didn't want to overwhelm players with a large amount of enemies and collectibles on their small iPhone screens. I still liked exploring these stages to find what few collectibles there were, but I would love to see this expanded upon in a non-mobile 3D Sonic game. Moving on to controls, I played the majority of this game with an Xbox controller Bluetooth connected to a 4th gen iPad Pro, and it worked quite well aside from one time where it kept disconnecting and I had to update iOS to fix it. I did try out the touch controls for about 10 minutes before swiftly returning to my Xbox controller. As touch controls go, they're fine here, but my biggest problem was that it was difficult to boost and jump at the same time since the two buttons were so far apart no matter how many times I adjusted their placement. That and a real control stick is more accurate and responsive than a touchscreen one. Maybe the touch controls are better on a smaller screen like an iPhone, but I have yet to try the game out there. That brings me to another limit from being mobile, as there's really only two buttons, jump and boost, with one or both of them able to double as a homing attack. This means there's no spin dashing or knuckles punching, as you'll primarily be boosting and jumping throughout the game using X and A on an Xbox controller. This really isn't a huge knock against the game, as it's still fun with these simple controls. I just wonder what the developers could have pulled off if they had more buttons at their disposal. I do have to commend the accessibility features though, as there are options to adjust how close the camera is to the character and if it follows you as you turn, which helps make for a smoother gameplay experience on touch controls, but I still prefer using a real controller. As for performance, I set the game to the maximum graphics quality and resolution scaling, and it ran quite well with very few performance hitches. I can only hope with the adjustable graphics settings that it also runs well on older, less powerful devices. As much as I enjoyed Sonic Dream Team, there are two major flaws: the music and the bosses. Aside from the intro theme, I struggle to remember a single music track from the actual game, as they all felt quite generic, which is always a bummer since Sonic is known for its great music. Finally, there are the bosses, as there are only 4 incredibly easy ones, and they don't do anything interesting. They just go around the arena launching slow attacks until they're left open for a homing attack. At least Sonic actually calls the giant enemy crab a giant enemy crab.
Seaside Dream, giant enemy crab.
So here's this giant enemy crab, and you attack its weak point for massive damage.
Despite these flaws, I am shocked by how much fun I had with Sonic Dream Team, which is interesting because it doesn't really do anything extraordinary. It has fairly basic running and platforming mechanics we've seen before in 3D Sonic, it just pulls them off really well, which goes to show that you don't have to reinvent the wheel to make something great. For example, as much as I can admire what Sonic Frontiers was going for, I wasn't a huge fan of the end result, being a few giant islands with some grind rails and jump springs randomly placed throughout them. Instead, I appreciated the more focused level design of Dream Team, with a few exploration zones sprinkled throughout. I also love the way it incorporates character select, even creating challenges designed for specific individuals. And unlike Sonic Frontiers, I never felt Dream Team overstayed its welcome, with a brief 3-hour campaign, and I still have quite a few missions I haven't beaten yet, with post-game content on the way. I am happy to report that I liked Sonic Dream Team a lot. And if it somehow remains exclusive to Apple Arcade and never releases on other platforms, I at least hope future 3D Sonic games take notes from Dream Team, such as how it incorporates swappable playable characters and more open but still linear levels. I greatly admire what developer Hardlight Studio has accomplished here, and I look forward to seeing what they do next. But thanks for watching our review of Sonic Dream Team. Are you going to check out the game? Let us know in the comments below, and until next time, bye bye.